I'm Chef Geoghegan from Cargill, and we're in the kitchen with Sterling Silver Premium Meats. It's a podcast where we'll be serving up insights and perspectives for chefs and food service professionals. And of course, we'll be digging into the world of premium beef. Because even with over 30 years of culinary experience, I still have an appetite for learning more. I hope you're hungry too. We're coming to you from the Cargill Innovation Center in Wichita, Kansas. And today, we welcome Tim Niver, owner of Mucci's Italian and St. Dinette restaurants, both in St. Paul, Minnesota, to talk about restaurant leadership and expanding your business portfolio. To give you a glimpse into his background, Tim grew up in Buffalo, New York, and got his start in the hospitality industry at the age of 15 working at McDonald's. He graduated from Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and since that time, he's enjoyed stints at Parasoli Restaurant Group in Minneapolis, Smith & Wollensky in New York, and the Bellagio in Las Vegas, later returning to Minneapolis to serve as the general manager of Marcus Samuelson's popular restaurant, Aquavit. In 2006, Tim began opening his very own restaurants, including the Town Talk Diner and the strip club Meat and Fish, before opening St. Dinette in 2015 and Mucci's Italian in 2016. In addition to running those operations, he also owns his own frozen food company, Mucci's Frozen Foods, as well as doing his very own podcast called Niverland. So he's a foodie and a talker, just like me. Welcome into the kitchen, Tim.
Pleasure's mine, Chef. Thank you so much.
I gave a little bit of a background, your bio there, but love for you to let us know a little bit more about yourself.
Well, sure. I'm a Western New York kid, Buffalo Bills fan, some of those basics that go along with being from that part of the world. But, I grew up in...
and you like snow, I guess.
I love snow. I do ski, and it's always been a part of the winter weather has always been a part of my life, the elements,
Sure.
So having moved to the New York City and to Las Vegas gave me a real good tour of things. And I landed here with my wife in the mid-'90s, and we've been in Minneapolis ever since. Just taking that entrepreneurial spirit with me everywhere I go now.
Sure. Thinking about your resume, seems like you're getting pretty good at opening restaurants, huh?
Yeah, hopefully I'm done opening restaurants, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just think I found my groove, and, since things have changed since COVID, we all had time to assess and kind of figure out perhaps what the path clarity is for ourselves. So I'm feeling good about, even just kind of having a couple restaurants going. I'm thankful and grateful, and that's enough for me right now.
I understand. So you've got one restaurant on one street, another part of town, you have another restaurant, you've got a frozen food business. What's it like juggling all that?
Honestly, I'm as happy as I ever been.
Awesome.
The challenges of what's gone on, again, in the last couple of years, arriving here now, I feel, happier about what I'm doing. So being able to kind of access, that joy again and apply it in work makes all of this stuff a lot easier. The food that I'm making for frozen food, they're basically family recipes. So I've done this all my life. It's very natural, and it's basically a calm experience until you have to figure out the distribution processes and PARs and all those things. But that's me literally still cooking for you and your family, and that's how I take it. It's important to me.
Excellent.
And then the restaurants, they happen to be, a couple of miles apart in St. Paul. So in the summer, I get to hop on my moped and drive between them. I'm here one day, I'm there the next, and, it really keeps things fresh for me. Each of the places is my office of some sort, so I can settle in anywhere and feel really comfortable in the city. It's nice to be in downtown a little bit, and then at St. Dinette by the Saint Stadium there in Lower Town. And it's also nice to be over in a more kind of neighborhood situation at Mucci's, where we have a patio and, we meet out there. So the life there's still a little romance left, but the hustle's always got to be there too, as you know. So it's a good mix of things, man. Thanks for asking.
Well, that's nice to hear. I guess what you're getting at is just being happy and loving what you do just makes it rather simple, even though it's not. There's things that happen every day and in the business that you have to deal with, but when you're happy, it's not that hard.
Yeah, it's a hard place to get to, making a decision to be happy, while you're doing something that's harder than it's ever been and basically is derived from passion.
Sure.
The business part of it is more difficult, just cost of everything. But like I say, if you accept that as a challenge and make it work, I think that's the only way to go. A lot of people left the industry too, and because it got more difficult, or they realized they weren't getting out of it what they needed. And those are sound decisions that I applaud. Finding your way is absolutely that. I figure I have a couple careers within my big career. Mm-hmm. I'm on my third one, kind of, with the frozen foods, moving into a new venture. But it's very exciting.
Sounds like you love to learn, which is another driver,
Yes.
Because if every day goes by and nothing new's coming to you and you're not experiencing and building upon your knowledge, life can get pretty boring and sometimes dissatisfying, which it doesn't put you into the space that you're at right now, which makes you happy, right?
Yeah, again, I have decided that this is what I wanted to do and it's okay, and just like somebody not deciding not to, I have full respect for that. So however I made this choice for this living and I'm in it and I'm really glad I am. There was a couple years where I didn't want to be, but I'm glad I am again.
Well, that passion was still there somewhere. It was just, there were things that were trying to knock it down, but you came through it. So with that, I'd like to talk about leadership and your leadership style. And there's been a lot of speed bumps in this industry lately. And, how are you dealing with that? How are you overcoming that? Because it seems like you're navigating it rather well.
Sure. Well, not to sound cliche, but leadership by example is really where I've stayed my entire career. I still serve. I still clean the bathrooms. I still power wash the patio. Being present and showing my passion for it and what my work ethic is really been kind of the mainstay of things. A lot of owners are disconnected, say, from the day-to-day. Sure. And I'm the opposite way. And not that I have to be there all the time, but the kind of essence. And so I empower the folks that I work with to be themselves. I let them be them, and then I give them a clear standard and expectation upon which to apply themselves.
There you go.
And so they're comfortable with themselves and they apply, the standard and the expectations, which are clear. And then everybody kind of goes on the same path. And most of the people I work with have been there for numerous years. And there's a reason. It's a small business. We don't have every benefit in the world. We're not able to offer that. We're still in somewhat of a austerity budget and kind of a warbly time. Mm-hmm. But our people stay with us because they're respected. They can be who they are. They know that we want to see them advance if that's what they want. Some people just want to come in and work.
Sure.
They just want to come in, punch the clock, and go home. And this is a supplement to the other part of their life, which is really what's driving what they're doing. So, leadership is kind of based on me looking at giving a clear path, but it's based on the individual and what they bring to the table and me allowing them to be themselves. And then it kind of lifts us all up because there's no stress on a script. There's no stress on trying to do something that's not natural. And so I think when you come to my places, I've heard people say before, that's a Niver restaurant. No, that's one of the best compliments I've ever received in my life, chef. Because it feels the way when you come in and that we all care. And there's a little honesty there. There's a little New York swagger there, too. Because we're not going to we don't get rolled over or anything like that. But the essence of hospitality is kind of having it, in our places, is having it be natural. And if that's us busting your chops, then maybe we'll bust your chops a little bit.
Yeah, and that's all right.
Yeah, it's fun. Adds to the verve.
Being from New York myself, I do miss that sometimes. I think people can try to be a little too nice, and it's not in a bad way that you're busting chops, right? But it's having fun, and it's not at the expense of your customer or even your employees. It's having fun together.
It's not really at the expense of the guest, but I think I also do involve the guest in my humor, and you're kind of finding your way with them every time. So if I see that somebody's joking or making fun of one of the people at their table, I might just tag on with them and kind of continue the humor and press on that person a little bit. So sometimes it is at the expense of the guest, but that is involving them in trying to like find my segue into the experience with them and becoming part of it. So maybe there's a little bit at the expense of the guest there, but in the right way, with the right meaning behind it or the right sarcasm. There's a line, but it's really fun to kind of walk that line.
I think what you're saying is that they're not a transaction.
That's right. It's not a transaction.
I mean, at the end of the day, being that person sitting at the table has to realize, right? There's more to this restaurant. That's why it's a Niver restaurant, right? Because there is a genuine, we love having you here. We enjoy feeding you, making you happy, bringing you into our world every day.
Yes.
Which is not something you get in a lot of restaurants.
It's because it's not replicable. It is something that is innately there with a culture, and it's built, and it's a feeling. We have numerous people that eat at, say, Mucci's, and they say, God, I'd love to work here. You all get along so well.
That's cool.
And we do.
That's really cool.
It's not correct to really say we're family anymore, because while that's an inclusive term, people that we work with you don't have to feel like family. That's a little too personal, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not about necessarily feeling like family. It does to me. It's just about feeling like you have a place.
Sure.
Whether you're the same or different. And they have a place there. They all do. So
you being the leader and leading by example, that helps set up that culture. But your hiring practices and things like that, too, are a big part of that. Is there any more you can, suggest to those that are out there that are maybe opening up a restaurant or maybe struggling with that on ways to breed that good, inclusive culture that gets great results and makes your customers happy, too?
Well, it sounds silly, but a resume is ridiculous to me. Because I'm going to ask you where you've worked and you're going to tell me. All right. I mean, It's an outline or whatever. But I hire a person. So, for example, this one person walked in one day, knocked on the back door, walked into the restaurant, and she just kind of had this little whirling dervish about her. And there was this breeze that came in the door with her that was so fresh. And she's just like, hey, guys, I'm just stopping in to see if you want to work with me. And we just started laughing. This person's a stranger off the street. And so we just started talking with this person. We didn't know that she had experience or not. But you could kind of just sense that they were part of it, right? Yeah. So a resume does matter. Sometimes there's technical aspects to work that you need to know, and it does matter, but you hire a person. So if I can look somebody in the eye and they're looking me back in the eye, or if I see a desire to learn something about that person, a drive for money is not the worst thing, people need money. Survival is a motivator. So on whatever that level that somebody walks in the door, you're hiring the person, not the piece of paper. And trust is built. You have to offer some right off the bat.
Of course.
So we offer some trust up and just say, hey, in that clear expectation and in that standard that we offer up a little trust early just to make sure that person, senses the place. And then we tend to make sure that people work with everybody in every position. Okay. Just if they're going to do every position or not, just so they can kind of sense everybody else's responsibility and sense of responsibility. So we really integrate very quickly into that culture piece, but you have to hire a person.
Correct.
First. Yeah. You hire that person. So we're pretty good at reading them and understanding who we vibe with and what people move like. There's physical attributes to this job that are necessary. Somebody who's got grace or, and not everybody needs to have it. But, these are things that you pick up from sensing a person versus looking at a piece of paper. So that's kind of what we focus on. Because if you're confident in your trade and confident in your skills, then you can pass those. This is not rocket science, okay? Nobody dies here in the restaurant, hopefully. So you can pass on your skills to them in the way that you want to. Maybe there's no bad habits or whatever, but the right attitude is the cure-all to not knowing what you're doing.
Sure. Behaviors, right?
Yes.
That's huge. I mean, even in the corporate world that I live in, that's, of course, you still look at resumes and all, but there's a million job applicants. But at the end of the day, it's talking about behaviors and reading people's behaviors. Because if they're willing to learn, you can teach them. I do like what you said about having grace and so forth. Yeah. I mean, I think about my son. He's got 2 left feet and knocks things over left and right. You don't want him walking around carrying food in your restaurant. So it's rather important to have a little bit of that look. And it's not so much that you're going off of looks, but there's that you're going to work in my restaurant.
So I'd say, hey, to your son, I said, hey, kid, you're doing a good job, you know? What I see is that you need a little practice with how you're moving around the room.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to grab a tray. I'm going to give you a tray. And we're going to walk this room, and we're going to add a glass every time we walk around the room. All right? And by the time we get 4 glasses on the tray, you and I are going to be giggling because you already got it. And if you don't get it and you drop something on the floor, then you get to practice cleaning it up.
There you go.
Not a big deal.
No, you're right.
So, it's just kind of like, for me, especially with the younger folks, it's like, okay, if they see me doing it with them, I'm like, all right, I love it. I love it. Add that next glass. I put it on there for them. It's, small steps. It's all good. No matter where you come to us from, it can work for us.
Having the staff see you do the work too, right? As the owner, the leader is so big. There's so many people out there, like you said, they're removed from the restaurant and then never there. And it's hard to work for someone who's not, that you don't see put the work in. And I think I learned that long, long time ago, just working, hearing people complain about the managers not doing anything. They may be really busy and doing a lot of other things, but people learn and they understand that, if the boss is willing to come in and do the dishes, then I better not complain about doing the dishes. I mean, you can tell someone what to do, but you're actually showing them and walking them through it and giving them, I guess, alternatives. If one thing doesn't work out, you got other, there's different ways that we can all add to the team.
Chef, the other thing I think that's really important that in the moment, when you're working with somebody, and it's kind of a crazy scenario, right? The day is always moving. And when you're in the restaurant world, things are always happening. The ticket's coming up, the phone's ringing. I mean, there's a million variables that are touching the senses, right? But we also employ a certain amount of directness that if we make a mistake or we see something we didn't like in service, we address it immediately so that it won't repeat itself again. So those are some tender moments where you have to kind of get in the middle of service while all these variables are going on, tell somebody something that may be like, I'd like you not to do this again, please. Thank you so much. And then move on and get right back to it. But we make a point to address it in the moment because it becomes habit just to take care of things then. You don't let drama hang out. You use your manners if it's a direct statement. And that really is just like, chef, please, okay, I would appreciate it if we could X this, but, thank you so much. Let's not do it this way. Thank you so much. And then you move on. But if you don't address it, it can keep happening. And so that directness with gentle directness is really important.
Oh, yeah. You get more with, sugar than you do with, I forgot what the saying was, but vinegar, yeah, something like that. But yeah, you're right. Back to the culture piece, we talk like individual, but then you say, maybe you don't call it a family because that becomes really personal, but it's still a team. We all have to help each other, work together, whether you're working one table, you're working the whole restaurant. What's your philosophy there?
Well, the person, the employee kind of shows us what they want, in a lot of ways, we let them demonstrate and work towards their next goal within the team. But really what I'd say is that, yeah, we have servers and then we have, server assistants and there's different, specific jobs that they all have. But everybody does the same job. If the phone rings, we're all looking for it, right? like I say, at the beginning of the shift, one of us is cleaning the bathrooms. We all end up having to do the same job so that
Okay.
we don't feel separated by position.
Yep.
The server has a special job that the server assistant could probably do, but that server just is really like a sparkling example of what a hospitalitarian could be. And that server assistant's picking stuff up from this server all the time. But they have to work in tandem and they have to anticipate each other's moves. So having everybody do every job, clearing tables, whatever it is, there's no separation really in what they do other than one talks to the guest just a little bit more. And so we try to keep those jobs as equal as possible because they are really equal. You can't have one without the other.
Sure.
And we try to make them understand that the restaurant's the body, one of them's the left hand, and one of them's the right hand. And so they work in tandem, and the restaurant's the body. And so that's kind of how you have to do it. You might be left-handed or you might be right-handed, and sometimes you have to lean on the dominant, but that doesn't mean that the left hand isn't there supporting the other side. And it's just as heavy. So, that's kind of the philosophy that we use. And when you don't separate positions by responsibilities so much as, some places have to,
Sure.
doesn't become a tier of employee.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's on the same tier. If there is a tier, it's one tier.
Yeah.
So it just builds that confidence and trust with each other. And there's winks and nods, as we say. Like I can walk away from a table and clear it. And I can just look at my server assistant and they're either already grabbing the silverware to reset it for you, or they're saying to me as I walk by, I got the reset on 12. And that's because we got each other's backs and because we're so used to helping each other out because there was never a separation. We get to work together.
That's great. I love the way you put it, the body, and no hierarchy there. There's no need for that. That's a great culture and philosophy, and I can understand why I'm sure lots of people like working in your restaurants.
It's a good time. Thank you.
I don't see that in many places. You don't want to go out. I mean, they're there. Don't get me wrong.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Not every corner restaurant can have that. And it's nice to know that it's still out there, though, some places.
Mucci's doesn't have a sign, Chef. We've been there for...
Really?
7 years. And everybody's like, we can't find it. We can't find it. We can't find it. But they walk into a full restaurant and I'm like, you found it. We didn't really have the money for a sign when we opened.
Sure.
And it became kind of a joke, like, when are you going to get a sign? When are you going to get a sign? But really what happened is it's not like a, if you build it, they will come kind of scenario. But people found it. And when they come inside, they're so surprised at the life in there. Like it's a little black box. And you walk in, then it's like all of a sudden, it feels like it has a place, like it's meant to be Mama's kitchen in a way, It's not kitschy, but it's just got a sense about it.
So it's in a neighborhood, is that right? Is it an old house that you turned into the restaurant, or was it?
It's literally an old brick building. It's rectangular in shape. It looks like something you'd see. When I saw it for the first time, I'm like, wow, it's pretty ugly. But it was evocative of, like a building you'd see in the East Coast. It's like this little kind of corner store building. Nothing flashy, nothing whatever. And it's tiny. It's 1,100 square feet, 44 seats. Yeah, it's in this little, like, old blue-collar neighborhood of St. Paul where these families in these homes have been there for years and years and years. It's just kind of like workman-like neighborhood, and the building looks the same way. It was a bakery called Kinds, Kind''S, back in the late 1920s, and it survived as Kinds until the mid-'60s, and then the neighborhood kind of took it over and made it into multiple different types of little restaurants. And then when we found the building, it was vacant for 8 years, and was musty and had really ugly curtains hung in it. And my business partner said, how are you even going to make this into a restaurant? But I did. Somebody called it a shoebox, but
Okay.
It's like a shoebox, but it's so charming now. We renovated it. We didn't have a sign. We didn't have to say we were here, kind of like, people found out about us, and then, that's what it's about.
That's really cool. I'd like to change the subject back to your businesses and your endeavors. You've got a lot going on. So you got 2 restaurants. You've had many over the years, and a frozen food company. And you also have a podcast. You have other ideas, and you don't have to tell me, but it seems like, you're a busy guy. There's a lot happening here. What drove you to do that?
This industry has always been challenging, right? It's always been reputably difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've kind of always considered myself looking at lily pads in front of me, kind of as opportunities. And the dream used to be to have, say, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 restaurants, but things had changed. I got older too through all of these things that I've been doing, right? I've arrived here now, and for me, I really had to make a choice, Chef, on what my legacy is going to kind of be, and then also, what my financial decisions are going to be for myself for the future, what angle allows me to reposition and, say, diversify and find other avenues of revenue, because the main part of the core, the passion core, isn't always the easiest financial path to some sort of retirement, right?
Sure.
So for me, each of my businesses needs a little special attention, just like a human would. Like the restaurant also is an entity. It grows from day one, and it turns into what it's going to be conceptually, and whatever you can write your plan down on a paper, but the place becomes what it's supposed to be as it's happening. So, specifically, like Dinette right now, there's not a ton of workers back downtown. So we're captivating the summer crowd, the farmers market crowd, and we're going after a certain crowd. When it's there, we are aggressively taking it, and Moochie's has a little different angle, we have a patio, and so we're in the summer promoting that and always moving with the seasons. And then the frozen food thing really has become my core. Yes, I'm still at the restaurants, I still serve and things, but, for me to have something that could be a bigger business based on the things that I love, that was a development that I was hoping would happen, and it takes some time. I've had a frozen food company for 5 or 6 years now, and now we have entrees, and I'm getting my feet wet, it's a hard business, but it's a new skill, and I'm applying a lot of what I know into a new career for myself. So, finding that diversity keeps me buoyant. It gives me another lily pad to hop onto. And so I got a bunch of ideas. I'm just trying to figure out the relationship between, say, time and investment and return a little differently than I did before. And so, that's been affecting my trajectory. And I have a trajectory, which is cool. The podcast was born out of the need to call attention to the restaurant. I use it as a marketing platform. And I have numerous friends within the industry, right, that I have reached out, and they've all said yes. So I did a couple podcasts, and I'm like, this is interesting. What I realized is that the result ended up being more than me needing to call attention to myself. Thank heavens. Though it did, like I say, people say now, Tim, your podcast is great, etc. They don't actually even say anything about my restaurants first anymore. They talk to me about my podcast. It's because it's actually opened up a connection from the inside of the business. You can see a TV show that maybe represents the industry or whatever and really like it. And, the reality is X versus what the TV show shows, right? Mm-hmm. So we pull the curtain open on the podcast a little bit, talk about the people inside the business, what their desires are, what they're feeling, the challenges and the reality of it all. And so now the podcast is, I get to call a little bit of attention to myself, and people see that I'm in the community, I'm talking to relevant, popular chefs, and that I'm in the mix, right? That's really helpful for my business. It just is being out there.
Yeah.
But also the message becomes something more than I could have ever imagined. That it could be, just understanding a person better, a controversial chef better. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's why they react like this.
Okay.
Or they see this other chef, and they're like, holy crap, they are so talented beyond what I knew. And their story, how they arrived, is really what explains how good they are at what they do. And so these paths that I'm walking with these people, it's been a real eye-opener to me. It fills my heart up. So this is a way for me to be creative without spending $1 million opening a restaurant.
It sounds like to me that this starts in your hometown and connecting with all these other people in that industry and hearing their path to success or, I mean, I hate to say it, but sometimes failure. But either way, it drives them to being who they are today. And to understand that, to then go, oh, I get this. Now I know why they cook the way they do. Now I know why they handle themselves the way they do. I think, too, what you're saying is that these people themselves, they might not have a place to tell their story. And you're giving them that opportunity also.
Yes. They're my friends, and more so now than before.
Yep.
I talk about how in our industry, or in any industry, think about a person, right? You wake up with a full cake. You have a full cake when you wake up in the morning. You get to work and you give a piece of cake to this person, and you give a piece of cake to this person, you give a piece of cake to this person, and at the end of the day, do you have any cake left? And there's really got to be some cake left at the end of the day. I think it's vital. So we try to position my life like that, and I try to help others position their lives like that. And, it's been good stuff.
Really, really cool. Back to just having multiple streams of income. Do you suggest that's something a lot of people should be looking at and thinking about? Having their own lily pads to jump back and forth on? Because as you mentioned, it can be tough times in a restaurant.
Yeah. It takes all kinds, right? You just have to figure out what your path is. For me, the lily pad idea has been, it's not really a sense of security if you're leaping from one lily pad to the next. It's just about options, and that you find the lily pads become options, and that, you can grow those lily pads yourself, right? You can put another lily pad out there for yourself if you're really wanting to. So it's just, for me, it's been a way to kind of have some stability within an industry that's not stable, is to continue to have something else out there for yourself in case. And everybody's talking about diversified investments. Well, there's a little bit of that too. The way that I structured these businesses, they're all separate entities. So I have different business partners in all of them. And so it's a diverse group of people that, you might think that gets confusing or diluted. And in a way it does, but it's also how we structure everything around people. And it's worked so far in the sense that, there's been times where we've closed restaurants and they're unmitigated failures and from a financial standpoint, but we've also learned our lessons that we're always able to provide an excellent product. We're always able to understand the concept and execute on it. It doesn't mean, though, from a business sense that it ends up working. And, we get immediate feedback in our industry, too. And so we're the ones that are kind of like, okay, I don't like this, I'm never coming back kind of scenario. It's a really hard place to be. But, as an industry, we've really stepped up our game. And, it's really nice to feel competitive spirit out there again and people opening new places. It's a good trend. I think we're headed generally in the right way, Chef, I guess is what I'm saying.
Sounds like you've got your finger on it and you've gone through lots of different things. Like you said, you've closed businesses yourself, and that's not what your original plan was when you opened them, I'm sure. But, you gotta, sometimes things happen, and the idea maybe didn't work in that neighborhood, or who knows, maybe the owner of the building decided to quadruple your rent and you just had to shut it down and get out. Those things happen. But having those other ideas and not being down on the industry is huge, right? So having a love and a passion for it is great. So back to the frozen food company real quick.
Sure.
So it sounds like you mentioned before, a few minutes ago, that it was like 5 or 6 years ago. So that was pre-COVID? You started that company?
Yes, just pre-COVID.
Okay. Because I know I've talked to lots of chefs that, started selling meals to take home during COVID. I mean, everybody had to start to really try different things, whether I'm selling you meat that isn't even cooked, and you can, take marinated steaks and cook them yourself to full meals, whether hot, cold, whatever. But being that you started prior to COVID, did you learn more or change the idea when COVID came around? Like, did you say, oh, I really need to go all in on this, or I need to think about doing things a little different?
I think I've chosen the most difficult career, one of them imaginable. And then I doubled down in the frozen pizza mecca of the Midwest. I decided to make a frozen pizza and sit in the frozen pizza aisle with 100 other pizzas that are really good and bad, right? So, I thought I could be the difference maker. We have Montanara as our crust. It's a fried dough crust. So that's our point of difference. Our pizza, I've literally, chef, hand-fried every one of these crusts for the last 5 years myself at the restaurant. Then our co-packer comes and picks them up, and they make these pizzas in a facility. So at the beginning of COVID, I was just behind. 2 years before COVID, I was trying to figure this all out. I was in one store, and then I was in 20, and I was like, oh my gosh, how do I keep up? And then I was in 50, and then we got behind on some things, So then we stabilized operations. It took about a year and a half. We stabilized operations, and pretty much right after their COVID happened. So, we were shut down to the public for so long that end on a Monday and Tuesday that I had free availability in my kitchen to fry these crusts. So we saw a big rise in frozen food sales.
Yeah.
And our store, we had grown slowly into being in about 60 stores. And so now, after filling those stores, we're now kind of just refilling them. And COVID brought, it was a great filler. It was a great thing for the gap that, between PPP and the actual takeout business that we were doing, that was really great. We got through all of it, and I was able to kind of support and build a little bit. And it was during COVID that I said, hey, I might need to transition. After we get through this survival mindset, I could see it out there for myself, and I wasn't ready, but I could see that I needed to do more. So after the first year of COVID, I developed a frozen lasagna, an entree, right? Pizza sales are fine. It's so competitive and busy. But I had to understand where my difference could be. And we were selling frozen lasagnas from the restaurant, handmade from the restaurant, and people would buy them. Hundreds, it was a very popular item. And I'm like, this is it. We're going to make the transition. We're going to do entrees. And so now I make a 34-ounce, lasagna. So it's, feeds 2 to 4. And it's just a little bit more. And I knew how to get margin out of this one where I couldn't get it out of the pizza. And I knew that I had less competition on the shelf, and certainly nobody at the level of quality that I was trying to achieve. So I really, COVID did push me in a direction. The pizzas got me in the door, and my restaurant career helped with that. People knew me, and so that was really kind of greased the skids for me. And then, kind of innovating in, COVID, while it was very difficult, the only thing you could do, you innovated or you were going to go away. You had to innovate and had to press on that idea of constant change and give challenges to people in a time where they might not have had, something to engage in. And for me, I engaged in, oh my gosh, so we got frozen lasagna done. And then after COVID, we developed a vegetable lasagna, a baked penne with meatballs, and a meatball side. And now I have a line of entrees based on some of this innovation, and aggravation that happened during, COVID. So it did fill me with the spirit to kind of keep moving this. We have a chicken parm on the way. I'm trying to decide whether we should do gelato or if I should stick here for a minute. I got to go out to the East Coast and try to sell my lasagna to my brethren out there,
Sure.
On the East Coast, because that's kind of where the story was born for me, and I want to kind of go back there. So
That's cool.
that's where I'm at, man. And it's been, like I say, a really cool ride. And I'm happy because I can be energetic about the things that I'm going to do. And
What a great story.
thanks.
I got to try your pizza one of these days.
Please do.
Definitely need to do that. And you're right. I mean, up in Minnesota, there's a lot of different frozen pizza brands.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy. But hey, everybody's got their own choice. I'm a firm believer that even horrible pizza is still better than no pizza at all, to be honest.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Oh, wow. I need to spend some more time with you because you're energizing me. I think your outlook and your positivity and your passion is infectious. And I'm sure all those people that work for you, they must feel it. That's got to be, why things are positive in your world. But I can't end my podcast without talking a little bit about beef. So Sterling Silver Premium Beef is what this is about. So if you're going to go out, cook or order a steak or some cut of beef, what would be your favorite and how would you like that prepared?
I have to say that I used to own a steakhouse, and beef has been an important part of my life and my livelihood. So maybe non-traditionally from others, I like myself a good prime cut, but I like a flank steak. And, I like meat to have that texture. It's okay to chew on it a little bit, or something that needs a little technique to get it to a point where it's as delicious as it could possibly be.
Sure.
Like, I'm a home cook. I'm not a technical chef. I get a flank and I'll bring it home and it'll be in its butcher paper and I'll just take the knuckles in one hand, kind of pound on it a little bit, flip it over, pound on it a little bit, just kind of break it down, and just mishandle it. And I love it. And then marinating meat. There's no problem with that. Out east, these marinated steak tips all the time. And it's just like this thing that they all have, like leftover meat. You just marinate it, you put it here, and then, people are going to the store to buy them. So marinating meat and kind of helping it accentuate its fatty flavors or working with those fatty flavors and then just grilling it. I'm not macho and have to eat things medium rare. I really like, especially on a flank, to take it to medium, maybe just a little bit plus, because what you're doing is making the meat more tender by cooking it more. A cut like that with the chew, sometimes you just want to mitigate the chew, just cook it a little bit more. But that's me. There's still pink in the middle, there's still that color, but that marination and everything that comes out on the grill and the way that the char works with the, the oils and the fats. It's just, that's what I want.
Yeah. You're a true beef lover, if you don't mind the chew, right?
Oh, yeah. Tri-tip, all those, kind of, odd cuts, skirts, like they take a char real well. And
they do.
And that's the thing, and that's meat.
Yeah, that is really good. I've actually been playing around with a lot of flank lately, and it's different. Like you said, it takes a little work, but it's okay, and the results are well worth it. Everybody loves, like you mentioned, a ribeye, tenderloin, strip loin. They're delicious, and they always will be, and they're indulgent and all, but they are what they are, and there's so much more in that animal, and to learn how to take different cuts and find the best way to prepare them and put a little love into it with that preparation. Put some knuckles into it, as you mentioned. That's exactly it right there. But you can still have great nutrition and wonderful flavor. And
hearty.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right on the cook. I think going pretty much to that medium is going to give you the best texture on a flank. And that's not the case with all cuts, right? Some cuts are going to do better medium rare. Some cuts are going to do better. Well, we know we have to braise some, right? So they're going to be well done if you want to consider that braise terminology. Usually we don't throw that out there when we talk about it. But to get that tender, you have to cook it that far.
Beyond,
Well, hey, Tim, this has been an excellent conversation and truly appreciate you joining me on the podcast today. And thank you so much. And for all the listeners out there, if you get a chance to get into the St. Paul area there, it's connected right there to Minneapolis. You need to check out some of Tim's restaurants. I know I will. Again, thank you so much for being on here, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Chef. It's been a great time.
And listeners, thank you for joining us on In the Kitchen with Sterling Silver. Be sure to join us next time as we continue to slice into the amazing world of beef. Until then, happy eating. To get the next episode delivered to your inbox, subscribe on our website, sterlingsilvermeats.com. Just sign up for our e-newsletter at the top of the page. You can also subscribe on your favorite podcast platforms. And be sure to follow at Sterling Silver Premium Meats on Instagram. Until next time, we'll see you in the kitchen with Sterling Silver Premium Meats.